Look at this footage that will absolutely blow your mind. July 19, 2024. 8.5 million computers gone. Just like that. You know what's absolutely insane about this? One software update brought down airlines, banks, hospitals, and emergency services across the entire planet. We're talking about a digital apocalypse that happened while you were probably sleeping, and most people still don't understand how close we came to complete technological collapse. I just discovered something that changes everything about how we think about cybersecurity. This wasn't hackers. This wasn't ransomware. This wasn't even malicious. This was something far more terrifying. A single line of code that exposed just how fragile our entire digital civilization really is. By the end of this video, you'll never look at software updates the same way again. You'll understand why tech executives are losing sleep, why governments are scrambling to create new regulations, and why this disaster is still making headlines months later. This information is spreading fast, but most people will never learn the full truth about what really happened that day. Here's where this gets absolutely insane. At 3:09 a.m. Eastern Time on July 19, CrowdStrike pushed what they thought was a routine security update. Within minutes, computers started dying. Not crashing. Dying. The infamous blue screen of death appeared on screens from New York to Sydney, from London to Tokyo. But wait, it gets worse. American Airlines, United, Delta all grounded. Every single flight. We're talking about thousands of planes sitting on runways, millions of passengers stranded, and airline executives watching their companies lose millions of dollars every single hour. And that's when I found the smoking gun. Hospitals couldn't access patient records. Emergency rooms went into crisis mode. In some places, 911 call centers went completely offline. People calling for help got busy signals. Here's what nobody tells you about that morning. Your bank accounts were essentially frozen. Credit card transactions failed. Payment systems that process billions of dollars daily just stopped working. The global economy literally ground to a halt because of one company you'd probably never heard of before. So who is CrowdStrike, and how did they break the world? Well, buckle up because this story gets even crazier. CrowdStrike isn't some small tech startup. They're a cybersecurity giant worth over $60 billion. They protect some of the world's biggest companies, including 71% of Fortune 500 companies. Think about that for a second. 7 out of 10 of America's biggest companies trust CrowdStrike to protect their computer systems. We're talking about companies that run our power grids, our financial systems, our supply chains. And on July 19, that trust turned into the biggest tech disaster in modern history. Here's the part that's going to mess with your head. CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz had to stand in front of cameras and explain how his company accidentally crashed 8.5 million computers. 8.5 million. Let that sink in for a moment. But here's where this gets absolutely insane. The actual problem was microscopic. We're talking about a content configuration update that contained null values where there should have been data. For non-tech people, imagine if someone replaced all the stop signs in your city with blank poles. Cars would keep driving, not knowing when to stop, and chaos would follow. What happened next will make your blood boil. This wasn't just any crash. This was the dreaded blue screen of death, error code C00000291. When you see this screen, your computer is essentially brain dead. It can't boot up, can't access files, can't do anything except show you that blue screen of digital doom. Stick with me because this gets even crazier. The fix wasn't simple. You couldn't just restart these computers and hope for the best. IT professionals had to physically go to each affected machine, boot it in safe mode, navigate to a specific folder, and manually delete the corrupted file. Picture this: 8.5 million computers needing hands-on fixes. Some companies had thousands of machines spread across multiple buildings, multiple cities, even multiple countries. Each computer required a human being to physically touch it and perform the repair. And that's when I discovered what this really cost. Delta Airlines lost $500 million. $500 million from a single software update. But wait, it gets worse. Industry experts estimate the global economic impact exceeded $15 billion. Here's what they don't want you to know. July 19th was supposed to be a normal Friday. People were planning weekend trips, businesses were wrapping up the work week, hospitals were managing routine patient care. Instead, it became the day that exposed just how dependent we are on systems most people never think about. Trust me, what's coming next will shock you. Emergency services in multiple states couldn't dispatch ambulances properly. Fire departments lost access to their computer-aided dispatch systems. Police officers couldn't run license plates or access criminal databases. I know this sounds impossible, but here's proof. News outlets around the world led with this story. Global tech meltdown. Digital apocalypse. The day the internet died. This wasn't just a tech story buried on page 5. This was front page, breaking news across every major network. But here's the smoking gun nobody talks about. This disaster revealed something terrifying about Microsoft Windows. CrowdStrike's software runs at what's called the kernel level. That means it has complete access to your computer's core functions. When it crashes, it takes everything down with it. Let me explain this in simple terms. Most apps on your computer are like guests in a hotel. They can use their rooms, but they can't access the building's electrical systems or plumbing. Kernel-level software is like having keys to the entire building, including the power grid and water supply. Here's where this gets absolutely insane. Mac computers and Linux systems barely felt this disaster. Why? Because Apple doesn't allow third-party software the same level of system access. It's like the difference between giving someone a guest pass versus giving them the master key to your house. What happened next will make your blood boil even more. The lawsuits started flying. Delta sued CrowdStrike for $500 million. Shareholders filed class action lawsuits. Customers whose businesses were destroyed demanded compensation. And that's when the real drama began. Congress hauled CrowdStrike's CEO in front of cameras for a public grilling. Politicians who barely understand email were asking technical questions about kernel-level access and software deployment procedures. But wait, there's more. CrowdStrike's stock price plummeted. The company that was supposed to protect other businesses from cyber threats had become the biggest cyber threat of the year. The irony was absolutely brutal. Here's the part that's going to mess with your head. This disaster spread like a virus, but in reverse. Instead of infecting healthy systems, it was killing systems that were supposed to be protected. Starting in Australia and New Zealand as their business day began, then moving west as the sun rose across Asia, Europe, and finally North America. Picture this timeline. At 6 a.m. Sydney time, computers started failing. By 9 a.m., major banks and airlines in Australia were down. By noon, the chaos had spread to Asia. London woke up to find their financial district crippled. And then it hit the United States during rush hour. Social media exploded with videos of blue screens everywhere. Airport departure boards frozen. Bank ATMs displaying error messages. Hospital staff taking photos of crashed medical equipment. It was like watching the world's infrastructure crumble in real time. Here's what nobody tells you about how this actually happened. The file that broke everything was called C000000291.sys. This tiny file, just over 42 kilobytes, contained the configuration data that CrowdStrike's software used to detect threats. But here's where this gets absolutely insane. The file contained what programmers call null values. Imagine if someone handed you a recipe for cake, but instead of ingredients, half the lines were blank. You'd try to follow the recipe, get confused, and everything would fall apart. That's exactly what happened to 8.5 million computers. What I discovered next will shock you. CrowdStrike had testing procedures that should have caught this error. They had quality assurance processes designed to prevent exactly this type of disaster.